Hello, my name is Rajit Talesra and welcome to my YouTube channel. So this is part 2 of Rails API plus React video series, and this video is again independent of any other videos. So if you want to view only this video and not the previous and after videos, it's completely fine. It should work for you. So in this video, we'll work with Devise JWT tokens. We'll create users and create APIs for them, and we'll verify those APIs in Postman. Okay. So before we go into the practical applications of this, let's first understand some basic problems that we have and how we can get rid of it. Okay. So right now in previous video, I have created challenges. Okay. By challenges, I mean these model. It's a basic model challenge. It has a title, description, start date, end date, those kind of things. Nothing very specific. Other than that, there are no models in my schema. Okay. So let's assume that we do have challenge. We know that via API call we can add this. We have tested it in previous video and all those things. But whenever we are creating a challenge, we want to make sure that only signed in users can add this challenge, right? No one who is not authorized should not be able to add challenges for this, right? So for that case, we require users. Okay, so for example, Rajat Talesra as a user can add a challenge. XYZ person as a user can add a challenge, right? So we will create those users. Now, challenge will get created from our website, which is called as a, whenever we are calling website, I will either call it as a front end or a client. Best word is client, but I can understand that a lot of beginner developers might not be well versed with that term in day to day. So we can also use front end for that. So a user can create a challenge, that's fine. Whenever challenge gets created, we will have to make sure that user is authorized. Okay. So how can we authorize this? Authorize user. One way to do this is taking their email and password, right? They sign in on whenever we sign in on any website, we provide our email ID and password to sign in, right? We do that so that we are now an authorized user for that website. Now the problem is user might be creating challenges. That's one part. In future, they might be participating in it. In future, they might be adding submissions to it. So in all those cases, we will have to verify that the user is correct or not. Whenever anything gets added or whenever anything gets destroyed, we have to make sure that we authorize the user. Okay. So during all those times, we cannot ask user to add email and password again and again, type it in edit box or input box and send it to us, right? So the alternate of this can be we store this information in cookies in our client side or the front end side. But again, that's also a problem. Why? Because if something gets saved to client side, it is very easily hackable. Okay. Password, anyone can see through those cookies and check that. If anyone still wants to secure it, then also those encryptions are breakable at some point. So anything on the client side, storing anything on the client side is really bad practice. Obviously, we will add a lot of things on, save a lot of things in cookies, but we don't want to save any really important information. And password is really important information. Email up to an extent, it's fine, but password is definitely really important. We cannot save it on client side. So if we got rid of it, using email, we cannot authorize any user. Why? Because you might be aware as a user on the platform, you might be aware of my email ID, right? So if you are aware of my email ID, you can go to the cookies, change that email ID to something like johndoe@gmail.com and send the challenge. So does this mean that this challenge was created by this user? No, it was created by Rajat Talesra. I just changed this email ID in cookies and using that I was authorizing it. So again, this is also a problem. So how do we fix this solution? For that purpose comes JWT token. Let's add this here. Okay, what will happen is as soon as a user gets created, it will generate a unique string. That string will be so unique that no one can understand what exactly it is, at least by human readable format. Even if they want to crack it, they can understand only the expiration time of it. Like this token, for example, by default, it will expire let's say in 2 hours. So even after 2 hours, someone tries to do any actions, which is add or destroy action, it will be automatically be expired. So none of those actions will work. So how does this work? Whenever user sign in on our platform, we generate a unique JWT token and save it on the cookies side. Now, as I mentioned, cookies are easily hackable, but JWT token doesn't make any sense, right? And it is tied to our backend in such a way that saving it on frontend doesn't make any sense. It won't affect anything, but in API calls it will. How? This user now, along with whenever they are adding a challenge, they will send JWT token. Okay, along with all the challenge details like title, description, start date, end date, they will also send a JWT token. So what will happen is this JWT token is unique. Let me write it. Unique, expires, random. So it's a random string. It expires within a certain time that we mentioned, and it is unique to a particular user. So using this JWT token on our backend, we can easily identify which user it is. And from that user, we can define, okay, this user is trying to add this challenge, or this user is trying to destroy this challenge. Okay, so I hope this makes sense that we are providing a unique name to every user or unique string to every user, which will help us in authorization. So based on all these concepts, now we will have a look at some of the documents. We will use Devise Rails. This is a gem which helps us in authentication of users, like using email ID and password is the basic thing. The other gem that we'll be using is Devise JWT. Okay, this will help us in authenticating the user, generating a token for every unique user, those kind of things. Okay, I'll get rid of these things now and close this. So I'll use this Devise JWT. And third, I'll use a tutorial called Devise plus JWT Rails. There is a tutorial from Dakota Lee Martinez. I might be pronouncing it wrong, but that's what it is. We won't follow this 100% because it's an old tutorial, almost 3 to 4 years old, but this will help us navigating the steps that we want to. Okay. So if we have a look at this, they're just setting up the project first, React course and all. So we'll start with what we know. Let's start with Devise. I've done this in my previous projects also, so I won't go in much depth of it. We'll quickly follow the steps of getting started. Let's add this. Generate, install. Then we have to add this in our development.rb file. So let's go to backend app config environment development.rb file. Okay, and I'll add this in production also. In production, for now I'm just adding it, but when we go to production, we might change it. We might not, we will change it. Okay, and I'll mention a to-do here. Prod. Anything else that we have to follow? Yes, raise generate device user. So we'll whatever users we have, we'll name them as users. You can mention them as customers. You can mention them as admin, whatever you want to. In our case, it will be user. Okay, and finally do rails db migrate. So what is the advantage of this? The advantage of this entire process is that we have our database which have users in which we will take email and password, and we have all the encryption and everything related to that password automatically done. All of these things will get taken care by Devise. Okay, so we have followed majority of the steps. Rest of it we'll follow later. Let's have a look at our tutorial again. Okay, we created our project Rec course. Okay, let's add this also. Rec course is basically it helps us in using our APIs. Other than Postman, we can use these APIs in front end also. Okay, so we are already taking this step. Uh, our Postman doesn't give any error whenever we are trying to use APIs because it neglects CORS, basically cross-origin resource sharing. It neglects that entirely. So if we add this, we can make sure that beyond our Postman, we can use this APIs in our front end also. So for that, I'll go to our gem file, edit here for now. Go to let me do a couple of things here. Bundle install, first is this, and build our project Rails as. Maybe stop it again because we will have to do a couple of things again. And now go to application.rb file. Not application, sorry, course, cross-origin resource sharing file. In this cross-origin resource sharing file, we'll have to mention that this website can be used, this APIs can be used in XYZ domain also. For example, what I can do is I can mention */*, which means that all the APIs in this project can be used by anyone. Star means anyone can use it. If we deploy it successfully, in that case, I can mention our website name, which is codechallenges.com, can use APIs from this project. We don't want any other users to use it. They can use it, right? But because right now we are working with development project, so we can use localhost. Next thing, we will have to expose some things. What are this? I mentioned that we can store JWT token to our front end so that we can use it, right? So if we want to store JWT token in our front end, that JWT token will be part of our authorization. Okay, so we will have to expose it. Expose it meaning, for example, if we go to Postman, whenever we make any API call, okay, in response we get this response. Along with that, we get the header also. In this header, we are exposing that this header can show us authorization also. If we don't expose it, our header will get set, the JWT token will get generated, all of those things will happen, but our code won't be able to see it. Humans won't be able to see it. So we are just exposing it. What are these other things? If you have a look at this tutorial, they've mentioned it here that they tried using authorization only, but in some cases, using authorization only did not work. And that's why they are adding these things also. So my suggestion would be, if something comes up like this, you should comment this one, okay? And then remove all of these things and try it out. If it works, that's it. You will use only authorization because we want to expose only authorization. But if it doesn't work, you can always go back to this, okay? At the same time, we are adding a comment here because what if in future you encounter such error? So you know that, okay, these are the things I have to fix. You don't have to go through the documentation again. So these are the hacks that I normally use. I'm just trying to teach you about it. They have mentioned a couple of things also. So let's add this gem also, Devise JWT. I've already mentioned that we'll be using it. I won't use JSON API serializer. You can still use it, but I won't use it. Okay. I have a fixed structure in mind, so I'll follow that only. Rails, no, we are adding a gem, so we'll have to install that gem. Just writing a gem name here doesn't work. We have to actually install them. So that gem also got installed. Clear Rails S. Again, going to the documentation, bundle install, all of these. We have done these steps. Let's do this one. Let's try to find navigational format. It's part of device. It's an empty array. So let's use empty array here. This one is also done. Created user, we have created a user. We have done the migration. Now let's generate this. But before we generate this, I want to show you a couple of things. Rails routes. Now you can see we have routes for users and all those things, right? But the output of these we want to control. For example, I can show you one demo here. Let's try to create a user. So for creating a user, we have, let me clear this actually. Routes, dash C users. Oh, sorry, not users, device. Right now, it's only device. So, create registration, create. This API will help us in creating new users. So let's try to create new users. Right now, we haven't used JWT token. Okay. So I'm just showing you some demo. It's a post method. Instead of sign out, I want just users. This is the URL /users/users. We are posting it, post, and now I'll go to body, raw JSON. I'll just add raw JSON in this users object, and inside that I'll send email test1@gmail.com, comma, password 123456, and let's send this. Okay, nothing worked. Why? Maybe our server is not running. Yes, I think so. So Rails as start our server, take some space here, send, and we see we are at least getting some response, but it is unprocessable entity. Okay, let's see what did it do. It called our users with the post, and it had email ID which we sent. It had the password. It has already filtered that password, which is really nice for us. And it is giving error, but I think it would have gotten added. So again, I'm going to the same folder, and in that I'm using Rails console. Using Rails console, I can access my database and models and all those kind of things. So user dot all, it's an empty array. So because of this error, this user never got added. Okay, but the API call was successful. It gave us an error in the end. That doesn't mean that it was failure. It was able to connect to our correct API and all those things. It was working, right? So let's stop this. Now we will directly try this with JWT token only. Where is it? Okay, so if you notice that previous response, the most important thing that I wanted to say, show you was in body, we are not getting any information. Whether the user was added successfully, whether it was not added successfully, they're giving us the status of 422, which is fine, but that doesn't give us all the information. Why did it fail? Maybe the password was incorrect. Maybe the user name already exists, right? We want all those kind of information. So for that, we'll have to modify our controller. Okay, controllers in Rails, controllers are responsible for giving these responses. So what we can do is, if you have a look at exit, if you have a look at these APIs, there are sessions, passwords, and registrations. We won't focus on password in this. Password can help us in updating the password, but we won't do that in this one. Sessions and registration, we'll focus on that only. So we will have to generate those controllers so that we can access them basically. We can edit them. So for that, I'll use this code. Clear Rails generate device controllers. I'm following this article, but you can find the same information on the GitHub profile also. Okay. The name of our controllers is users dash C. Sorry, name of our model is users dash C. And in that, what do we have to do? We have to mention sessions and registrations. So what it will do is it will generate controllers related to users. Dash C is for controllers, and which controllers? Sessions and registrations. If we don't mention this last part, all the controllers will get generated. Let's copy this, mention it in routes. Routes. We have mentioned it in routes, but we are using sessions also. Sorry, registrations. Registrations, REGISTRATI. Okay, correct. So the main advantage of that was two of these controllers got generated, right? I'll get rid of this code. We don't need this. Okay. The first change we will do is respond to JSON. What it basically means is that whenever some API gets called in this particular controller, what we want is we should respond, we should reply for those APIs in terms of JSON. Okay. Earlier, if you would have followed any of the Rails project, in that we don't mention it because by default it's anything. And in most of the cases we were responding in terms of HTML. We were giving the entire front end which was visible. Okay. But in this we just want JSON response, and that's why I'm mentioning respond to JSON. Okay. This I will do and explain later on. But before doing that, okay, I think I'll have to do it right now only. So we have done this basic change and all those kind of things. Now what we are doing is we are configuring our device to use JWT. I did mention it earlier that till this point we haven't started using JWT. Okay. And I had mentioned it earlier that we will generate unique code using JWT. We will generate using a unique token for users. Okay. So when do we want to generate unique tokens? Whenever user signs up, whenever user sign in, we want to generate a unique code. And when do we want to destroy that code? Whenever user signed out, after that we want to destroy that code. Because, for example, I have a particular website, Instagram. I have signed in all those things, XYZ, done. Now, if I sign out, can I add post after that? No. So how can I restrict myself from that? As soon as I log out, my JWT token will get destroyed or it will get updated. Okay. If it gets updated or get destroyed, in either case, I cannot access my previous token. I cannot use my previous token. And that's why adding a post will not work. In our case, adding a challenge will not work. So I'll just directly copy this because it's not that hard. I'll explain each and everything to you and paste it here. Okay. Now, first one is a secret. So I did mention that JWT, this device JWT will help us in generating the unique tokens. So to generate unique token, to generate unique API key, to generate any secret code, we need a secret key also that will help us in decoding it and encoding it. Really sorry. So this secret is required for that. I'll explain you these two things, but this should be pretty straightforward. This basically means that whenever a JWT token gets generated, that token will expire in next 30 minutes. By default, if you don't mention it, the value is 2 hours. And for our case, we'll keep it 2 hours. Okay. Now let's have a look at these two. These are array. Okay. Array of arrays basically. So what this means is that in dispatch request, you can mention various APIs that you have. Okay. Now what will be the advantage of that? Whenever one of these APIs gets called, it will generate a new JWT token for us, okay, and set it to that specific user also. For example, whenever I'm logging in, I'll use my email ID rajat_xyz and use my password. As soon as I use those details, because it knows, okay, on this particular URL, they have to dispatch it. They have got the request and they have to generate a new JWT token. So they will directly generate a new JWT token and set it in my database also. Revocation strategy means that when do we want to revoke that particular JWT token? So again, on logout, we want to get rid of that JWT token. On if we are deleting a profile, at that point also we want to get rid of this JWT token. Okay. So we have written this basic code. These API keys will change. Maybe I can change it directly. Rails routes -c users. In this sessions create. So whenever user signs in, it is a post method. So post method and /user/sign in. Whenever user sign in, we want to generate a JWT token, which will help us in authentication. Whenever user signs out, we want to get rid of that JWT token. Getting rid of it doesn't mean that we will destroy it. We will regenerate and set something else. So that way also it can help us, right? And What else? When user signs up, maybe in that case also, so sign up is related to registration, and in that also it is related to create, so slash users. So whenever you want to add any new API, simply add an array of two items. First one will be the type of API call. This is the post. And second one will be the URL for that. So for using the URL, we are using this particular regex. Okay, slash users. And similar to this, we can destroy a user also, right? So delete slash users slash user. So whenever a user gets destroyed, our JWT token will get revoked. It is giving me warning because it's using too many lines. So for now, I'll just shift it like this. It's not important. It's not an error. It's just Rubokov related error warning, which basically means that we have to follow best coding conventions. Okay, all of this is set. Now what's next? Let's go to our this expiration time we have already removed. You can find all those things in this also. JWT related thing, some of these things you can find like secret and all. Now let's follow this. You can follow anything. I'll just stick to this one actually. So now I did mention it that unique token will get generated and we have to save it in our database also. So our database, which is schema, users should have a column in which we can add that token, right? So for that, we'll use this migration. Clear. We have got this migration. Let's go to this migration file and I will copy this still, or maybe this full actually. Nope. So this will add a new column called JTI. It will not be null and it will always be unique. So by unique, it will make sure that whoever user is trying to log in, log out, or do any operation is unique and can be authenticated easily. Okay. So we'll do this migration. Before doing that migration, let's make changes to our user model also. So users model, user, and in that we'll mention a couple of more things. We'll mention that any device user is JWT authenticable. So JWT authenticable, make sure that JWT is working in parallel with the device. Okay. And we will use this, which is a revocation strategy. There are three types of revocation strategy. One is JTI matcher, second one is allow list, third one is deny list. You can read about them in detail here, but uh, just mentioning it very simply, allow list will allow a certain type of users, deny list will deny a certain type of users, and JTI matcher will basically match the unique token with the users. So we have made all the changes. Let's do the raise db migrate. Yes. Now the advantage of that is if we go to the schema, you can see JTI, null, false. And along with that, it's unique also. So we have added a unique token. JTI is basically ID only, JWT ID. So I'll close all these things, go back to my this Rails DB, we have migrated it. They are using JSON serializers, we are not using it. And finally respond. So I won't write this code right now. We'll get some errors, then we'll write this code. Okay. So what we'll do is Rails server. Now let's try to sign in. This sign up. In headers, we don't have anything. Okay. It is still unprocessable. Okay. Let me try out one thing. Why it might be failing, I'm not fully sure. Rails DB drop. I'll drop the entire database. Rails DB create Rails DB uh, migrate, and now start the server. And now let's make this API call. Unprocessable entity test one. This password is password incorrect. 123456. No password. Email. Users. Registration users. It's not working. Let me check the API again. Okay, I think I know what might be the issue. No, no, this is not an issue. So we have the server running here. Rails routes dash c users. In this, we want to create a new user using registrations, and we are using this. Okay, but it is not working out for us, and it is not giving us any sensible error also. That's what the problem is. Was well formed but was unable to be followed due to semantic errors. Let me have a look at one of my previous API calls for challenge. We used key pair everywhere. We are using key pair also here. 7.8. And in this also we have, okay, challenge was used. So maybe we'll have to use user. So let's try this. 500. We got some error. So let's try to solve this error. Disable server error. Uh, Let me try to search it. Okay, they have mentioned that we will get this error. For that, let me think. This is a bit frustrating as an API only mode. We are not going to be using session cookies. That's correct. Because it is a backend. In backend, we cannot use cookies, right? This is an unfixed issue bug from device with Rails. Okay, so it's a bug from device itself. There is an issue with this that discusses the problem and enable set to false. To implement this fix, create a new file in concerns. Okay, so let's try their solution. In my personal project, I tried some other solution, but I still want to try this one. Controllers concerns, controllers app, controllers concerns, and in that rec session fix. Okay, rec session fix.rb. What are they doing? Extend support concern fake rec session enabled false. Okay. Basically, we are making rec session false somewhere. So let's copy this and try it out. Missing top level, this. Okay, no worries. This is not an error. This is also not an error. All of these are just warnings. Let's get rid of this. And anything else do you have to worry about? No. Now we will have to, obviously we have just created file. It is not getting used anywhere. So we'll have to include it in our sessions controller. So let's go to sessions controller, this include, okay. Adding a current user, I won't do that in this particular API because we'll be creating a lot more APIs and I don't think we need this. Now let's try this again. For that, I'll stop the server, Rails server. And now let's see if we are getting this error or not. It got added, I think so. No, unprocessable entity. Okay. Even after this, are we able to add the user or not? It says rollback, but I think it got added. So I'll go to my Rails console, user.all. Yes, it did got added. Correct. Uh, so basically, we are not getting the response as we wanted. So now we have to update this, update our code. We will go to registrations controller. And in this, we know that we have to return JSON, but in what type of code we have to return, like will it contain message, will it contain what all details will it contain, right? So for that we can use respond with. I'll directly copy the code from there only, and I'll just explain it quickly because I think we have crossed a lot of time. Yes. Respond with, respond with, yes, this one. I'll just copy this entire code, paste it here. What it means is that we want to respond in terms of JSON content, but what type of content this respond with will decide. Okay, and now it has three different things. Uh, First is post API call. So what it means is that registrations can have, whenever your registration is related to managing the user, right? So there can be two things. Either user gets added or user gets destroyed. So if user gets added, the API call will be post. If user gets destroyed, it will be delete. If it is something else, we will give error that it should not happen, right? So I'll just make these, I won't follow this convention. I'll keep it simple. Yes. I'll use message. I'll use errors. Yes, I'll use errors also. And everything else will be part of status. That's one. Second, in this case also, I won't use this. I'll just use message. And data, no, nothing else. What's next? In this case also, they are using serializer, but we won't use this. We will return, as soon as the user signs up, we want to send the information that user has been signed up successfully, and we'll return the object related to that user, which is part of resource. Okay. And we don't need this status codes and all those things. Okay. Now I'll get rid of, these are not errors, again repeating, these are just warning from Robocop. Uh, I know it might be irritating, but yeah, now we can fix them. It's good practice to use single quotes wherever possible. In this one, it won't give this error because single quote is already getting used somewhere, so double quotes is a better convention here. Okay, so now we have written this entire code. Let's restart the server and see what do we get. But this time, we cannot use the same user, right? So we create some other user. 200. Where is the response? Why haven't we received any response? Test results, nothing. Body, nothing. Okay. It got committed successfully. Let me check code. Render JSON, yes. One of these should have worked, right? Because either it works in if or else, if or else, right? Uh, what is happening here? We have this authorization token also which worked. We are just not getting the result. So let me try it again. Unprocessable entity, which is correct because this is a post request, but persisted means that user got saved. User cannot get saved because the user email ID is same. So that means we got this error, but we are unable to see that in our body or somewhere else. Maybe pretty, okay, sorry, I was on the wrong structure, but we got this error, right? Message, user couldn't be created successfully, which was here also, user couldn't be created successfully, and errors, we got the error. Email has already been taken. So now we have all the description that we want, and using these, we'll get these responses on our front end, and we can write whichever code we want, right? Now there is one advantage of this. Let's use sign in. So I'll just duplicate this and I'll use get. But before doing that, I think we'll have to write some similar code in in our sessions also. By now you would have understood why we are writing those code, what type of data we want to send in our API calls. We are controlling it here. You can control it in whichever way we want. This is a JSON. It has an object. In that object, we can send anything. If you want, you can directly send resource also. You can do it in whichever way you want. But the only constraint here is that JSON should be valid. If it's an invalid JSON, we will get errors. So let's go to sessions also. And that also, let's copy this entire thing and paste it here. Let's quickly fix this. We already know that we won't be using serializer and we won't be using these things. We will be using directly message. Okay, now it is much more better visible to me. We are getting the current user, that's fine. If you want to destroy it, logged out successfully, but we don't want to use these things. We just want to use message, which is this one, which is good for me. Then there is a status, okay. And in this also, I'll get rid of this status. Couldn't find an effective session and this active session and this. So let's try to understand this. Let's end this correctly. So what does that mean? It basically means that respond with will respond to whenever user is trying to log in or sign in. In that case, we'll sign in. At the same time, we'll provide the new resource which has instance of that particular user, email ID, password, their JTA, and all those things. Not the password. Will automatically omit that. Device will automatically omit that. So all these will get returned. Whenever a user gets created, whenever we are trying to delete a user, respond to on destroy will get called. This will get called. And if the user is currently available, they are already signed in. In that case, they can definitely not logged out actually. Yes, logged out because we are working with session. That particular user can log out. But if it is not, they are not logged in already, then how can they log out? So in that case, we will return error that couldn't find an active session and it is an unauthorized user. Okay, great. So now let's call this API also. Users, let's check this API call. Sessions create user slash sign in post. Okay, user slash sign in post. Body, we have this particular user. Let's try to use this. Send, and we got it successful. Logged in successfully. This detail. Okay. Now let's try to delete this user. Duplicate tab. Delete. For that we have the registrations destroy. Delete. What is the path? Slash users. So we don't need this. And now we don't need any body also. What we need is a authorization token. Okay, how can we get authorization token? When user is signed in, first of all, you can see in this, we are getting the ID, we are getting the email, created it and updated it. We are not getting the password. So Rails has automatically made it secure. Okay. At the same time, we are getting a unique token also. It ends with C865, 865, 865. Okay. Along with that, in headers, if you remember from our code, let me show it here. Device. If you remember from this code, not this course code, we had exposed our authorization, right? So using that information, if we go to headers, we can see our authorization token here. Okay. And if we can see it in our, what is this, postman, we can definitely see it in our code also. Okay. So now let's use, during delete, I'll use this information. I'll paste this value first and I'll copy this key also, which is authorization. For which user we are doing this? We are doing it for test one. So let's try this out. We got some error. Update column nil class. Okay. Uh, Generate JTI. Some error related to this. Okay. I know. I made a mistake. The mistake is in this revocation strategy, I mentioned that during delete also we have to generate a new token for that. But if the user has already been deleted, even if you generate a new token, where will we save it? We cannot save it anywhere, right? So I had to get rid of this. Rails S. If you understand your code really well, you can understand each and every error also. Nil user, okay. So I'm assuming that this user did got removed. So for that, okay, unauthorized, some error is there. Let me check our database. Exit, clear, Rails C user dot all, and we can see only second user is there. So it definitely got deleted, but we are not getting the response successfully. For that, let's go here. Registration respond with delete. It got deleted, so it should be okay. Let me use puts. Whatever I write here, I can see that in terminal also. Delete. Okay, and there's actually no. I'll use it like this. And instead of all these, I'll use this information. Okay, now let's try this out again. This time we'll use a different user. So for that, we'll sign in a different user. We'll get their authorization token. This is an authorization token. It is different from JTI token that we are getting. Uh, in a way, it is similar, but that gets represented a bit differently. We don't save this entire authorization token as it is in our database also. Okay, it gets secured a bit. So now we can use this. Using this authorization token, we are basically trying to identify which user we are working with. Send, account deleted successfully. Now it is working. Delete. It is working. Somehow earlier there was some issue. No worries. So again, we can go to our database, reload, and there should not be any users. Yes, it is empty. So what I will do is I'll create a new user. We have tried creating the user, signing in, and deleting, and all of these are working correctly with JTI token. Okay, but I still want to test it a couple of bit. So I'll use 3 and send. Sign up, new user got created, 3, their JTI uses. Let me increase the size here. Okay, it's really bad. We cannot scroll this, so I'll have to reduce it. Last 4 digits are 0, 3, F8. Let's remember F8. Okay, now let's sign in. 3, send, body, F8. Okay, because the token has not expired, so we can definitely sign in. Let me duplicate this. Yes. And now I'll use sign out. So for that, I'll first have to check the API that we are using. For sign out, we will have to go to sessions, destroy. We are destroying a session, which is basically sign out. Use delete, and in that, in authorization token, I'll have to use this information. Cookies, headers, where is authorization? What is the value of this? User 3 got signed in. The value of the authorization token is this key. Delete user sign out. So the value of authorization token. Let's send this. Logged out successfully. Okay. Now Let's check our user again. Reload. You can see the last four characters are 57E3. When we signed in, what were these characters? These were 03F8, this. So basically, we had mentioned in our code that whenever user gets updated, whenever user tries to sign in or sign out, the JWT token should get updated, right? If you have a look at this dispatch request, whenever user tries to sign in, it should get updated. Whenever user gets try to sign out, it should get updated. Now you might think, why don't we mention this same, because in each and every case the JWT token is getting updated. So why don't we just copy this and paste it here? Okay, there's a very important difference there. This is sign out. If you go to its header, do you see any authorization token? No, you won't. But if you mention it in dispatch request, you'll see authorization token as part of headers. Okay, so that's the most important difference here. Whenever user is signing out, we don't want to send new token that has been generated to them, because we don't want them to use it to make any API calls, right? So that's why revocation request is different from dispatch request. I hope you have understood this. I've gone through a lot of videos and documentations, and I believe no one has explained these things in this much detail. So if you really appreciate this work that I've done, I know it might be really long, so a lot of users not might have not viewed this fully. But if you like this depth, do let me know in comments and do share it with your friends. Because if you like these, subscribe and comment on these videos, it reaches out to a wider audience. And I believe that these type of videos should reach to wider audience, because the videos that I have seen, they do work. They are not making any mistake, but the details in those videos are a bit less. That's what I feel. Okay. That's it. Thank you. Bye bye.